Five, four, three.
Good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me, my hetero life mate, Oh My Feelings. But today, we're doing a pre-recorded thing because I'm actually now in the U.S. So, what is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go and watch a movie, you watch it, then come back to us, and we break it down, and we geek out and nerd out on it. Today, we have got something rather special because it wasn't on my usual docket. But of course, I've got Pops here to talk to me about a movie called Payback from 1999. So, Pops, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very blessed. It's going to be great to do this, spend time with you. Hope you're enjoying your visit to the States, and I'm glad we're able to work this in to make that easier for you as well. But yeah, 25 years later, Payback. Yeah. I thought that'd be kind of a fun film to talk about. It was on a long list of things that we had considered, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't watched this in a minute. Let's watch that. So yeah, good time.
Yeah, when I kind of threw stuff at you, and I was like, oh, Payback's good, and I was like, yeah, I haven't seen that movie in a long while. Now, Payback came out in 1999, and 1999 was chock full of movies. It's basically one of the best years in movie history. I even did a full-on, like a 4-hour stream to figure out if it's better than 1984 or not. By the way, it's still 1984, the best year of movie history. But it's one of those rare gems of Mel Gibson that people have forgotten. If you say a Mel Gibson movie, you'll probably hit like 4, 5, 7 other movies and not get to Payback. So you get your Ransoms, you get your Lethal Weapons, you get the Passion of Christ, you get all sorts like Braveheart, all that, and not hit Payback. Mostly because the movie didn't quite do as well as it should. There's sort of numerous reasons which we'll go into it, but it was basically, it came out at the wrong time, marketed not correctly, and was a shame because it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very solid. I know film noir films are noir type films are not for everybody. They don't always land. But it came out in this time of it came out like in February and into the spring, so it's sort of an area that hasn't really always done particularly great. But it had a very long run in theaters. It was in there for quite a while, and I think that it just through word of mouth, it was a very solid film. I don't think it had word of mouth to be some sort of great film that you have to go see or anything like that. So it had that solid feel, and that's why it just sort of kind of lasted for a long time in a very solid range, and ultimately did fine. But yeah, you're right. I think Mel Gibson's resume is so full of high profile and bigger successes, both as a performer and as a director. This is a film that doesn't make the radar screen for most people.
All right, to get into the weeds, we have a segment. It is called Behind the Screens.
Sound production, take 2.
All right, Behind the Screens is where we talk about everything that it has to do with sort of behind the scenes and stuff. And to be absolutely fair, I talked to you about this like backstage. The stuff that is available to talk about this movie mostly is kind of, very scarce. If you go to the dreaded IMDb trivia, you get a ton of stuff that has nothing to do with like actual production. Sort of the things that you find there are like, oh, the movie has telephones in them. They're all rotary dialed, but the movie has like no year. So it could be like 1974, for instance, or 1999. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? So we'll touch upon a few things that I've gathered. So Brian Helgeland, the guy who directed the movie, well, mostly directed the movie, was working on the script for this movie. He was working on the post-production of Conspiracy Theory, which he did with Richard Donner and Mel Gibson. When Gibson saw him walking around the lot, he was holding a few pages from the script itself. He was asking him, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, that's the new stuff I'm working on." It's like, "Okay, give me to read." And he basically read the first act, and he said, "Well, this is pretty good. I want to be a part of it." And Brian said, "Well, I want to make it, but I want to direct it this time. I don't want Donner to be anywhere near this. I want to direct this." And Gibson said, "That's fine. Just once you're finished, give me the script, and we'll make it happen." Once Mel read the full script, he called Brian and he told him, "Well, will you be ready in about 2 weeks to start shooting?" And that's it. That's just how it happened. It was that quick. The movie itself is sort of a remake of a movie called Point Blank from 1967. It starred Lee Marvin. Now, that movie, Point Blank, is after I think a book called Hunter. But that book, when it came out, again, after the movie came out, that was, was based upon that. The book itself on the reprint was changed into Hunter Point Blank, just to ride that sort of PR of the movie. The director of that movie, John Berman, said that the script for Payback was something that Lee Marvin would have gotten, read, thrown out of the window because it was so awful, hit the floor, and a young Mel Gibson picked it up and actually used it. That's how he described the script for this movie. Suffice to say, he didn't like it. When it comes to the casting, Maria Bello, who played Porter's girlfriend, hooker type deal, she went to audition the movie, and she said she didn't want to do it after all. But Brian Helgeland was like looking for that girl he wanted to play. And when he saw Maria Bello, when she auditioned for him, he's like, "Oh, you're it." And he hounded her for about 2 weeks until she relented and said, "Okay, I'll do it." Um, Deborah Unger, who played Porter's wife, actually cracked 2 ribs when Porter smacked her into that corridor at the beginning of the movie because Gibson did it with, we'll call it with vigor.
Yeah.
It shows,
Yeah.
and they kept the take. So they did it a few times, but they kept that take when she cracked her ribs. And talking about people beating women, Helgeland did profess that the scene where Val and Pearl are kicking the ever living shit out of each other, the studio didn't get it. So they didn't get the play between Val and Pearl, and it didn't make sense for them. And originally they wanted to like not use that shot until Helgeland explained the SM or BDSM
Yeah, the
relationship
dominatrix.
they have with each other.
Yeah.
Sort
And I
of
will
like,
admit, I try to watch movies like this. I watch it the second time. I try to watch it a little bit more like through cold eyes. And I thought to myself, yeah, that would be a little. It's almost like almost I won't say shocking, but it's sort of like an abrupt thing in the film with the way the tone and the feel of everything is. And then you have this spot, and they just start beating on each other, and you're like, well, what is happening? So, I mean, obviously I've seen the movie several times, but through cold eyes, I could see that a studio executive or someone who has probably limited perspective on life and cinema as a whole. So that's my thoughts.
yeah. And there's a few more things. The original Bronson, so the head honcho of the syndicate, sorry, the outfit, the head honcho was actually supposed to be just a voice on the phone, and it was a girl. I had the name here. It's an actress. Where is it? I wrote it down, and I think I deleted it at some point.
Yeah, I don't have her name.
Yeah, I had her name. Where is it?
Well, I know that's again, you talked about the changes to the film or whatever. We'll get to that too. Gibson,
Yeah, I'll get to that.
where we get to the end, and that's where some of these kind of things got changed.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be a girl. There, I've got it. Sally Kellerman was supposed to be. It's the original voice
Right.
of
Okay.
Bronson on the phone. But after what happened with Brian Helgeland, that was cut away from the movie. Chris Christopherson was cast as Bronson, and all of his scenes and the scenes that kind of support that storyline was all of it was reshot, redone. Overall, what happened was there was a lot of bad blood between the studios and Brian, and the studio didn't like what he did with the script, and eventually what Brian said that when he went to the Oscars to receive his Oscar for LA Confidential, because he wrote LA Confidential, he thought he was like at post production for this movie. Like I'm like at the very end. He went up to get the Oscars on the weekend, and on the Tuesday he had no job. He was fired off the movie. The guy who completed the movie, I have no name for him.
There's two different people who claim, right? So I wrote that John Meyer, which is spelled Myhere, and Bob Abascal both claim that they finished the reshoots. They directed those. So I don't know. And Gibson admitted that he was part of getting the director removed. He admitted at one point in some interview that he was part of it as well. So he doesn't even get off scot free as creating the chaos in the post production of this film.
And there was some place I saw. It's like an article that somebody wrote that I think it's this guy that finished finished directing this movie, some ADA or some some rather, but he suspects that it was Mel Gibson who actually finished everything, did the shots, he brought in the people who did like the rescripting or the reshaping of the script, because there are two more people who are on the docket. I think. Let me look at the IMDb page. Yeah. Donald E. Westlake and Terry Hayes. Those are the two extra people that they brought in to finish the script and do the reshoots. Because otherwise it would be Brian Helgeland doing writer-director. And like I said, the article kind of suspects that Mel Gibson brought in those people, finished up the writing, and directed himself. But it's not confirmed, so I don't know what to tell you. And we had the same case in Tango and Cash. And in Tango and Cash, the director, by the end of it was during the shoot. By the end, he was like, I'm out. It's like, I'm out. You can finish this thing without me. And Stallone kind of finished Tango and Cash, but he's not credited as a director. So it could be that, but it's not confirmed anywhere. Apart from about 30% of the movie got reshot, which ballooned the budget, because the original budget was $50 million, but everywhere you look, it says 50 million, 90 million. So that was the ballooning, almost double the budget to do 30% extra of the movie, like hire a new cast, all that stuff, and add everything and making the movie for what it is. And as you mentioned, as we talked about backstage, one of the main issues is Brian Helgeland wanted Porter to be shot at the end, sort of like mortally wounded, but still alive as the movie kind of fades out as the sort of the car drives off. And we don't know if he's dead or alive, kind of like sort of like Shane, where we don't know if he's dead or alive.
Yeah.
But no, it finishes very clearly Porter being very, very much alive. A little bit hurt, but very much alive.
I can see Gibson being a little bit of a bone of contention with that too. That actually, I don't think that was what was said when he was talking about, getting being part of getting Brian removed off the project. But I could see Gibson during the heyday of his career and things like that. He didn't want to go out quite like that. It didn't play his way as he thought. So yeah,
especially at the time where it was he was writing. It was like he had the conspiracy theory, which I liked, but most people like. It's like and I don't think it did any good at the box office. But definitely, Lethal Weapon 4 was a major earner. It costs a lot, but it's up there with like bringing in as much or even a little bit more than Lethal Weapon 3, which was the more commercially successful of the three of the series at that point. Certainly with Jet Li coming in, bringing in sort of that crowd into it, the people who liked the kung fu movies, like, oh, he's in this. We've got sort of buddy cop plus this. He was riding high on that. So coming in to do this movie, yeah, I can see why he wanted that change. And that's about it. What I've got a few other things that's pretty much irrelevant. It's just more like talking about why the gun is called that way, not the other way, because of different calibers and stuff. I don't think that matters that much.
Yeah, I didn't find as much like interesting meat and stuff as some of the other projects, other than just this whole ending thing, this whole Chris Christopherson thing, reshooting all this stuff at the end, kind of redesigning all of it. So, and I guess, in hindsight, as I was looking at the movie today, it was like, wow, there is quite a bit that they did. They did quite a bit. That's a lot of folks that they had to bring in for those scenes. So, yeah.
Yeah, just when you realize what they had to change to make the story all about that sort of devious plan of kidnapping Bronson's son to flush out Bronson to make sure he reaches a certain point and then reusing the bed. And then they had to introduce the bed earlier in the movie, which causes different reshoots at different. It's very elaborate what they had to do. That's why it was so costly. And again, it was costly because it was last minute. Blah 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 blah. You know, it's like if you do stuff for last minute, and Disney is well aware of it today. When you do things last minute and you do changes last minute, it will cost you an arm and a leg.
Well, and like I said, they didn't bring back like it wasn't like you had Mel and Maria. You had they literally had to bring back all these different thugs, all these different secondary characters. There's like a ton of other characters that they had to kind of bring up too. So it was a big reshoot to kind of pull that off. So
Yeah. All right. Let's start like breaking down the movie a little bit. It starts. First of all, we mentioned noir. I would say it's and I did say it in my review, which will come out, I think, way before this episode comes out, that it's a cross between a modern style noir and a Death Wish movie or a John Wick movie, which is your typical criminal. It's like crime revenge movie, and crime meaning these are not good guys revenging like in Death Wish, but it's bad guys taking revenge on other bad guys, and you're not supposed to. It's like you're not supposed to like Porter. He does come off as a guy with a good soul, but ultimately speaking, he's a vicious mofo. He is not a good guy at all. And
do you think the reshoots kind of because I agree with you. I think it feels like it's almost like 2/3 to 70% noir, and then suddenly whenever it's the I'm just going to go person to person until I get my money back becomes like a Death Wish revenge thing. It becomes less of anything remotely noir or complicated or interesting. It doesn't have the dark edginess about it, but almost like fight scene, action scene, shooting scenes, and things like that. You think the reshoots are a large reason why the tone is sort of kind of melded a little bit?
it could be.
Yeah.
It could be because there's a there's a certain point because you don't know which things got reshot because we talked about this. We both of us don't know what the director cut looks like because we kind of
we don't have it. Yeah.
we kind of saw the stuff that we saw when we saw it in the theater. I didn't see any differences. If I do have it, it doesn't say it is. It could be that could be a reason because at a certain most of the movie, I was going to say most of the movie Porter runs from place to place, and he does use violent tactics, but he also uses a lot of his brain to have like sort of conclusions and deductions, and he is kind of muddling through the very first hour, apart from a few minutes here and there, sort of like a detective, but he's not a cop.
Right.
He's a criminal, but he does try to pick up pieces to find out, like to find out the whereabouts of his man, his sort of target. And then it kind of flips around into I'm going to not only kill you, I'm going to kill anyone that is standing in my way of getting to you and getting my money. Because once Val is taking off the board, there's still the matter of the 70 grand or the 130 grand or whatever money everybody conflates of him stealing, which was, to me, it was a running gag, but it wasn't done for comedic sake. It was just funny.
It was done for his quirkiness, right? It's part of his quirkiness of trying to maintain this. I only want what's owed me. It wasn't like I'm trying to get over anybody or anything like that. But you're right, because once it stopped being like a direct revenge, this is the person that wronged me. I just want get revenge there, get my money. Now it become like an anti-organization. That's why your John Wick analogy, I think, works so well, because then it was suddenly like, I'll just work through the whole crime syndicate till someone writes me a check. And it was almost like a strange, in hindsight, it's almost like a strange shift there, that it's like, well, why would he would know that? It's like, why would you, at some point it's like, I got my revenge on my guy. I lost my money, but I'll just go back to getting more money instead of taking on an entire crime organization. That's the big shift, I think, the noir into Death Wish.
Yeah, and maybe I picked up on something that I didn't mean to pick up on, because when I do my reviews, I don't go like really deep dive into things. But when we do this show and I go deep dive into things, and I found out all the stuff that is behind the scenes, it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's sort of the dichotomy between that sort of a movie or that sort of a movie is there. And it mainly kind of throws you off because that score that runs through the entire movie doesn't change. And it does set you in that mood of sort of like the 30s, 40s kind of noir film, but the surrounding is very much modern times.
Almost like an action film in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because I was reverse engineering that thought process as well with the whole Chris Christopherson thing, right? Because we took the faceless female voice, and now we make it this figure. So it's like we reverse engineer all those scenes. You go, okay, well, if it was just a faceless, voiceless person, it wouldn't have been like, well, I'm going to shoot this person. It's, I don't know. You just the whole construct of how that revenge plot against an organization would have worked. So it's interesting. And then when you compare it with, like you said, the scenes we're going through now, with what I think is really just a great build up to the story.
Yeah, and what I wanted to get capture a moment. I will capture it in like later on, but I will point that out. Is if you notice, and here in the show we do rarely touch upon that, but it's very important to me just to get why it's very much a noir film at like for most of the movie. If you notice, the color palette of the movie is not your typical color palette.
Right.
If you just look at his skin or just the surrounding of that dingy apartment, it kind of looks like it's very close to a black and white kind of a movie, like an old style noir, not like new modern noir, like an LA Confidential. This is like an old style black and white noir. It's not really black and white. It does have coloring, but his suits are gray and blues and blacks. And when you look at his skin, and later on when you look at like Lucy Liu's skin, she is very pale, and not because she put on extra makeup to make her pale. It kind of looks like she's very much black and white-ish.
There's a technique that they use for that, a bleaching process that they use, and they can go in and they do some colorizations for some of the other elements in the film as well to give people some color. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, went through some like random stuff of interviews and things they did. There was a comment Gibson made, and one of them talked about ideally they would have shot in black and white, in a perfect world, artistic world, but that wasn't going to work for the theatrical release and stuff at the times and what the studio would have wanted. But especially the first half of the film, it definitely feels more like 40s and 50s black and white noir type film. Sure.
Yeah, and this is just one of the points where he's still on the hunt for Val, and he's just picking up those pieces of information. He's picking up the pieces of his past of where Val is. He's trying to figure out where is he staying? What is the outfit? Where's his former squeeze, like his former lady friend, the girl he used to drive to clients. And this is I put that on screen because it kind of captures that moment where he's talking to a different prostitute, and she's like, I don't want to tell you anything, and he lays down a wad of cash. And he starts like, okay, is this enough? And another bill kind of runs through, and another bill kind of runs through. It's like, okay, this is your price. And then he stops. He doesn't let her get anything else. It's like, I got what I wanted. But I put it on because I wanted to have another example of that color palette because you can tell it's very gray, very bland, kind of not very well lit. And modern, like if it was modern, you could have seen the how red that bar is or how brown that bar
Right,
is.
right.
And you don't see that at all.
And if we compare this to Brian Helgeland's other work, we know he has a very strong taste for, you know, vintage and classic noir type films and storytelling, and styles and things like that. So, yeah, I really wonder if the studio and Gibson and others thought that some of the action elements at the end of the film would play better for the box office and audiences and things like that. But there is definitely a stark contrast from that early phase of the film, like you were showing, versus where we end up at the end.
Yeah, and I had a deep dive into LA Confidential with
Hmm.
Pauly from Latino Slant.
Yeah, great film.
And one of the things that came up in the segment of the behind the screens, and we kind of delve into it later on, is the fact that LA Confidential is a noir film set in a noir times, but it's not shot as noir. It's shot with natural lights. There's no play of light and shadow, and in this in this movie there is a lot of light and shadow, and you can definitely tell it when he moves from room to room, when he's outside, and when it's nighttime. You do get that, that lantern shot
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes when it's just lit in certain places, and in other places it's very dark, which is very 50s noir type of filmmaking. But the contrast is there's a lot of shooting. There's a lot of even at the start when there's that flashback when we get to know who Val is, what is his motivations, why does he want the money, and they do the heist. That entire heist is a full-on action movie with stunt guys. Sort of, it's not it's not as modern, but let's say sort of a 70s kind of action, when they're just doing the chicken dance with the cars and they just slam into each other.
yeah.
I found, I found
I
that
thought like
really
almost like a Serpico era type action film. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff where you feel like it's supposed to be rooted and grounded and feel very real and visceral. And it didn't. And I don't think that even though that happened, I don't think this felt out of place with the tone and the feel in that first 2/3 of the movie at all, for sure.
yeah, it's not like it's a full-on
It didn't
gun.
take you out of it or
It,
anything. Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of oh, it's not I wanted to say a clever way of stealing cash, but it's not clever. They just ram into them, but you don't use guns. But the entire flashback scene tells us not a lot about Porter, but it does tell us a lot about the other side, Val. Because immediately after everything happens, the case is in the car, everything is ready to go, and Val is just there beating the ever leaving crap out of the not the driver, but the guy who's sitting next to the driver. He just hits him for no good reason. The
Mhm.
guy is already out, like unconscious, and it sort of sets Val up as that sadist. And of course, later on, when he goes to the outfit, he goes to Carter and he tells Carter, like, I need some help. And Carter kind of massages him into believing that he can take care of him, like take care of it himself.
Yeah.
And then as he walks out, he tells him, well, you're an asset to the outfit because you're a sadist. And he flat out says, you're a sadist, and that's why we brought you in. But if you're no good to the outfit, we can just cut you loose, meaning you're dead.
Yeah. Cut you loose. Yeah. Exactly. No, it was really, really interesting to use the way they used the triads as sort of like just a stand-in for conflict. We need to have a reason to have conflict. Why do they have a heist? Who are they robbing? Could we call back to that later? I think Brian Helgeland's script here is really well thought out with all that. Like, how could we do that and then have a payoff later on? And then, of course, as you said, the character development for Val works. It works perfectly because you're creating the antagonist. You're creating this foil for Porter to go after. So without us having to discuss what a bad guy he is or anything like that we see in some of the modern entertainment, we basically were just shown what a brutal guy he is, completely thoughtless and mindless.
Yeah, and when we mentioned the fact that Porter comes in and he brutally assaults his wife, seemingly for no good reason, once you see the flashback and you realize, oh, it's not even Val who shot him in the back.
Yeah.
The betrayal is not just Val for the Val just stole the money. It's his wife that did the betraying because she slept with Val behind his back. It's implied. It's not even said. And when they leave him to die, she actually is crying, sort of like she felt sorry for it. And of course, which we understand leads her to go deeper into drugs. And eventually she couldn't handle him back in her life. She just committed seppuku. We'll call it that.
Well, and remember the photo. The photo was Val had got this photo that implied that Porter had an affair. So she had been manipulated as well. And obviously it's on purpose to have her shoot him in the back and not actually, shoot him when he's facing her and things like that. So everything about that led to this, oh, he's not actually dead. Maybe I made a mistake. Val's a monster, kind of guilt-ridden person. And again, perfect way to use a flashback. It doesn't happen very often. It was very refreshing to see such a well-written segment of film.
Yeah, and the fact that he came in and he made sure she doesn't have any drugs around her.
Yeah.
He went to the shower, came out, and realized, oh, she's a junkie.
She's a stash
because she had the gear stashed in the boot, like in her
shoes.
Boot. It's like, I should have known. Sort of like he had that face. Like, I should have known.
Yeah.
And of course, he uses it. The trail starts with the most unlikely character. It's this guy.
Yeah.
Which, to me, this to me was everything I wanted to know about not having a nose ring in my nose. At the time, it was starting to get popular for everybody to get a nose ring, and it's either a nose ring or a tongue ring. I went to the army, came out, and then all the craze was like, okay, now we're doing it in the eyebrow. That was the fad. And to me, this movie was like, I'm never, ever getting a nose ring ever in my life because I might be on the other end of being snatched out of my nose in that sort of fashion. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe that's why it's one of my favorite.
Movies impact us in all sorts of ways, my friend. So there's no reason to believe that Freddie Rodriguez didn't help set you straight.
All right. We'll do a pause right now because we'll do our first game of the night. I will have to do a little bit of magic here and there. All right. Our first game of the night. It is called Missing Marquee. Missing Marquee for the uninitiated and for Pops is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, we display them, and Pops will have to guess which movie this is. And because we don't have a live crowd with us, it's going to be more difficult. But don't worry, Pops. I got you.
Be all right. He won't leave me hanging too bad. Oh, Snake Eyes?
No, not Snake Eyes. It came out one before it or one after it. I don't remember.
Yeah. It's not clicking. My brain went Snake Eyes, and now I'm like, I got nothing. I can't get it out of my head.
It's fine. This is 8mm.
8mm. Yep, 8mm. Yep.
Pretty good movie, by the way.
Is that a 48 hours poster?
That is a 48-hour poster.
2001 poster? What do we?
2001 Space Odyssey, the British,
The
the
British version.
British
Okay.
version.
Okay. A Few Good Men. That's a
You good,
softball
man?
for me. Yeah. Um, uh, Black Swan. Black
Black
Dahlia.
Swan is
Black Swan.
correct.
Thelma and Louise.
No.
No, it's Julia Roberts one, right? Aaron Brockovich.
Aaron Brockovich is correct.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle is correct.
Oh, this is one of the First Contact.
This is First Contact, correct.
The Last Emperor.
The Last Emperor is correct.
Oh no, not a Connor.
I love this movie.
I love the movie too. That one I've cramped on.
It's a great detective movie.
Yeah, it's not clicking.
This one is called In the Name of the Rose.
The Name of the Rose. Yeah.
Yeah. It is Christian Slater's first ever film.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
You know what he did after this?
Uh,
A small guest role somewhere.
What year was The Name of the Rose? That might help me remember.
89. Oh no, after this, he did Pump Up the Volume. And
Oh, you're talking about Christian Slater. Okay. So Christian Slater did Pump Up the Volume, and then he did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Sorry, he did Heathers.
Right.
Then he did Pump Up the Volume. And then he had a small little cameo role in Star Trek. He was the guy who woke up Sulu to go and like help Kirk.
In Generations? Or is it?
No. In Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope I remembered correctly. But yeah.
All right.
All right. Back to the movie. So the dealer, the porter's wife dealer, kind of leads him in with the breadcrumbs into Stegman, right? Mm-hmm. Along the way, of course. It leads him to Stegman, and when he walks in, he's got that big dude at the front where he massages him to tell him where Stegman is, which basically was at the back. And when he waltzes in, he's got another layer to the story. Now, we already got the triads and the outfit. Now we know about Stegman, and now we pile on the corrupted cops, which to me was just perfect, because once they're putting to the mix, I don't remember where exactly in the story, but there's a moment where Porter kind of tells on himself that if he was dumb enough, he would become a cop.
Right.
And which made me laugh because he's Riggs. Like, he is Riggs.
Yeah.
And in a certain way, he carries himself throughout parts of the movie just like Riggs, but the criminal version of Riggs.
Right.
If Riggs wasn't a cop, he would become Porter.
Right.
And it just made me laugh because it's a throwaway line in the movie, and I don't even know if he reference.
Oh, they do it on purpose. I'm such a firm believer that they do. Yeah.
But because it's Mel Gibson, you can't count it out.
Yeah.
You really can't count it out. And if it made me laugh, somebody out there, it might have made him a little bit, because it's a throwaway line.
And I have to give some love for the cast, because noir films tend to just do this. They just get, you mentioned Stegman. This is Ira and Barry Shallow. This is Ira from the Ira and Barry Shalowitz, and then of course we have Bill Duke, who's just this iconic person that you just can't not like. I don't know. I love everything Bill Duke does. It's just great. So,
and it's not only Bill Duke, it's and I looked it up because I don't remember names. It's Jack Connolly,
Jack
with
Connell, yeah,
a great character actor.
yeah.
And he did cops, and he did criminals, and he did all sorts of different things. I think at one point he
He
was
was
on.
in L.A. Confidential, I think, right?
Um,
I think he's actually in because he plays a cop in like a million movies and things like that. But I'm
I
pretty sure he's
don't
actually
remember.
in L.A. Confidential as well. Um, yeah,
He could have been. I just don't remember out of the top of
yeah,
my head. But it's like it is a star-studded cast.
yeah.
If you think about it, you've got James Coburn, you've
Hmm.
got um, nah, this game, Chris Christopherson, and the guy who plays Carter,
Bill Devane, yeah, William Devane, yeah, yep,
William Devane. Yeah,
yeah.
it's so it's chock full of character actors.
Hmm.
It's not like it's not your leading man kind of actor. It's like, oh, but I know him from other things there, and I know him from other things there. It's like Bill Duke is on the screen, and you're like, him too? It's like this is awesome. Plus, it plays to his sort of Bill Duke's kind of easygoing, menacing threat. Um, it's funny because there's a movie that people completely forget. It's called Bird on a Wire. It stars Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn, and the two main antagonists are David Carradine and Bill Duke as two dirty FBI
Hmm.
agents. It's like
Yeah,
perfect.
it's good stuff.
It's perfect.
And the kid, the son, the one that plays the son, I had to pull his name back up. He was actually a soap star.
Really?
Yeah, at the time, my mom knew who he was. Anytime one of these soap stars made it to film, I would always hear about it from my mom. I'd be like, we'd be at Thanksgiving, or I'd be visiting or whatever. And it's like, what movies have you watched? Blah blah. And I'd talk about something like that, and she'd go, "Oh wait, that was the kid from Days of Our Lives was in that, or Victor from such and such on there was on General Hospital was on there." I was like, Mom, how do you know that? You don't even go to the movies that much, but
Well,
it was a soap people that to them these were like the rock stars. So yeah,
I mean, there are some like great actors that
sure,
did
sure,
roles, like Denzel Washington comes to mind. He did like either General Hospital or one of the hospital shows.
yeah.
There was two of them at the time.
It's a different genre of stuff, but it's a lot of work, man. I have a lot of mad respect for the people that do those shows because of the amount of labor that love that you have to have for it. Because I mean, it's got a different style and the dramatization or whatever, but just the fact that you put in that much time, day after day, week after week,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, the star-studded cast, it's not like they've got like major roles. They come in, they do a little bit of scene here and scene there. William Devane is there for like three different scenes, but that's about it. But every time he's on the screen, he has a presence. When he's talking to Porter and then talking to Bronson, the boss, it's sort of like if you're not ready for it, if you're watching this for the very first time, you're like, okay, Porter, like cunningly or smartingly got himself into a position where the two bodyguards are down. He's got a weapon. He's at Carter's office. Carter is supposedly the head guy with James Corbett character, Fairbanks, and we're
I
like,
think yeah.
okay, we've got to the end boss, and we've got like half an hour, 40 minutes left,
Yeah.
and then that call. So when you realize, oh, there's another layer to this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
I have to be honest. I mean, again, I watched it twice. So today I knew, but before I hadn't watched it in a while. Like you and I talked about that. And when the William Devane scene's playing out, I'd kind of forgotten that's when he gets shot. And I was like, oh, that kind of caught me off guard. And not that I didn't know he got shot. Just it's one of those things because like, oh, we were just kind of his character getting his groove, getting things moving, and stuff like that. And for those of you who don't know who William Devane is, he's famous for being on 24. So if any of you guys will watch 24, he's famous for being on that show.
He's famous
in a
on.
lot of ways, but I mean, that's the one I think that a lot of folks know the show 24, and he was on 24 for a long time.
It's so weird because he played uh, the president of the United States in SG-1 in
Mhm.
in one or two of the seasons. And to be absolutely fair, I don't know if how he was in real life, but it seems like he was the same as the president of the United States in SG-1. Just like he played just like Carter. I've not seen 24 past the first couple of episodes of the first season. It never interested me, that show.
Hmm.
So I have no idea he
Well, he
played.
praised the president again in one of the Nolan films. So would have been the third one, I guess. He's the president in that one as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's so weird because he has sort of that demeanor of laid back kind of a guy.
Mhm.
It's like no matter what's going on, he's still laid back. He's
Yeah.
smiling a lot.
Under
But,
control. Yeah.
but when he's here addressing Val, he's literally threatening his life. He is menacing as hell.
Yeah, the blood pressure though never seems like it rises, right? It's even more menacing because it's almost like the Hannibal Lecter threatening. It's like, I'm just going to do this, and this is what could just happen. It could just work out this way, and it wouldn't be good for you, would it, Val? And it's like, whoa, it's good stuff.
Yes, and that's what I like about it. And
Yeah.
the same goes the same goes for Christopherson. He has a different sort of menacing in his voice, and to me, it's the gruffness that he brings to the role. Same way that he brought same kind of deal that he brought to Blade, where he played like the sort of the guy,
Yeah, the inventor and
the inventor, the guy, the side guy for Blade.
yeah.
Same gruffness to the role, but in here it's sort of like, you took my boy, you're dead. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but you're gonna die. You're gonna either gonna die fast or you're gonna die slow. You're the other way. You're dead because you messed with my family, and you completely believe him.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, Whistler was a really cool role, and I think that he has that sort of like he pulls all that off really well. I think I like him better as Whistler than I do in this role, where he's part of playing like angry boss guy. But
Yeah.
not William Devane. William Devane I thought was great.
Um, once we've got that initial setup, we kind of get introduced to sort of the low level guys, I would say. We get to the point where Porter finds out about this hotel, that all the outfit is there, and he manages to get into that hotel and kind of surprise Val and Pearl at that point, because Pearl gets there and we've got the whole he's talking to Stegman like Val is talking to Stegman. Stegman literally tells him Porter is there's a guy here. I don't know him. His name is Porter, and Val kind of pieces out that, oh, is it the same Porter? It couldn't be. I seen him die. It couldn't be the same guy. And then Porter shows up smoking a cigarette, and Val wakes up looking for the gun. The gun is not there because Porter could have killed him right there and then.
I think this is the second scene, though, right? So the first scene that you were talking about, he's on the phone. It's the dominatrix part. He comes in, threatens him, says, "You need my money by midday tomorrow." That none of that happens. He doesn't have the money or whatever. Now he knows he doesn't have the money, and he shows up at the house because he doesn't think he can get him inside that apartment. And so he's there waiting for them.
Yeah, this is after he talks to him on the phone.
Yeah.
But this is after the Pearl scene. She already came to the hotel at this point.
Yeah.
And then I just have to move a little bit forward.
Yeah, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. Yeah.
And of course, we have that scene where Maria Bello's character tells him about the hotel in order for him to actually know there's a thing. And to get to Maria Bello, he goes to this bartender that he is like, tell me about, I need this girl's number. It's like, we don't do this like out in the open. And he just shuts the bar door on his, like on his hand. It's like, what are you going to tell me now? So, you make the call. I'll handle it. And it just goes to show that Porter is like, first of all, zero chill and no nonsense. He is just straight into the point. And it's at this point, it's still to me kind of ties into the noir rather than being a full-on Death Wish.
Totally agree.
Right?
Totally agree. Yeah, until we get, I think we're still noir well into the Bill Devane sequence when there's like the phone call, get your boss on the phone, and he does the shooting, and that's when it starts to shift because it's like, well, I'll just work my way up through this organization that I've been hearing about. That's when it kind of shifts. And then you have because it was after that we have the shootout with the triads and the cops are there, and you have stuff that almost becomes like action movie stuff where things just keep falling into place instead of like the mysterious in the shadows Porter, which I got to be honest, I watched it and I kind of thought to myself, and I agree with our assessment more so than to come to this conclusion of I don't like to see movies like this get remade or movies like this, but I could see a film called Porter, something like I could see something where I could get another film noir story out of this guy because he's got a lot more story to tell. He's quite the alpha dog.
Well, he did escape to Canada.
Yeah, well, you never know what can happen in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. You know how sketchy Saskatchewan is? No, I'm just.
Those are rough streets of Saskatchewan, indeed.
It's in the name.
Oh, sure, sure.
I want to get back to no. You know what? Yeah, I want to move a little bit forward. Because after Val leaves and another great actor appears for just a little bit, is the fact that Carter has this henchman, and it's
John Glover.
John Glover. And he's like, oh, this guy's here? And it's so weird that we were talking because last time we talked, we were on your show talking about Scrooge.
Oh, Scrooge. Yeah,
and
he's in that.
Villain there as well. But in this case, he's not a sadist, but he is an efficient assassin, but not as efficient as like you think he is. Because Porter has to take I don't remember her name in the movie, to be honest. It's Maria Bello.
Rosie.
Maria Bello out of the hotel because it's too dangerous, because the outfit would know who gave him like Val's position. And he takes her out of the hotel and gets her in this room that supposedly nobody knows about. That like it's a hideaway that he maybe used to use. He doesn't say. What he says was, this is a place that nobody knows about and nobody knows I'm here, so it'll be safe for you and the dog. Her dog named Porter, because he was her protector, and when he left or when he died, she had to get a dog to protect her. She even says he does the same job as you did. Plus, he doesn't screw me just like you didn't, right? Which was funny to me. But then the Glover character is sent to kill him, and they go to the apartment, and the phone rings, and nobody's supposed to have the number. Porter kind of suggests the fact that he doesn't really know the number, and it keeps ringing and ringing, and then he takes the cord, and he looks, and he goes under the bed and to the bomb, and this is the biggest setup for later on, and this is why I think this entire scene was reshot.
Okay.
and that includes the outside, right? I don't know if it was set up with Carter in that room, so I don't know if that scene got reshot. And you never know unless somebody from the production office tells you it is. But that bomb, that bomb is a big part of the setup to the ending, and how Bronson gets dispatched, and Fairbanks as well. They had to put it in. They had to reshoot this one as well. Into my mind, if it was the entire ending was changed, this had to be changed. And the fact that he finds the bomb, he realizes it's the guys from the car. He goes down to the car, cuts the cord, and basically throws the cigarette and it totally explodes them. By the way, they used that scene for the trailer as well. It's one of the scenes that I remember from the original trailer when I saw the trailer for when I watched a different movie, of course. And that's the one scene I remember that was included in the trailer. And to me, it's very not noir and very death wishy.
Yeah. Yeah, this is when it starts to shift dramatically into the execution phase of the film where things start to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that and by this point, after Val leaves the Carter thing, both that happens with Carter kind of sending off his henchmen to do that assassination, and also Val kind of conspires with Pearl because he tells Pearl about the theft and the heist, and that Porter is responsible. Of course, he wasn't responsible. Porter was responsible for the heist, and having the triad actually get into the mix of who's after Porter, who's after the money, what things Porter has to juggle, like the balls he has to juggle in order for him to get to Val for real and to get to his money.
Yeah.
Because at this point,
there are 4 or 5 antagonists in this film for sure.
Because at this point, Porter leaves Val alive in order for Val to get the money he owes Porter. Otherwise, he would have executed him on the spot in the hotel and be done with it. And of course, after the triad comes in, I need to get that specific scene where him and Pearl kind of have their gun to each other.
Yeah, that's after all this, because it's after the triad attack.
Yeah, they kind of ram him through, and they threaten to cut his private parts.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 corrupted cops kind of intervene.
Yep.
Basically to protect their investment, because all they want, all the corrupted guys want, all the corrupted cops want, is the 70 grand, right? Or the 130.
I'm gonna say I think it's 130 in that scene. I think the cops talk about the 130, and he's like, "No, it's 70." It's like, yeah, whatever.
I think the only guy apart from Porter who actually gets it right was one of Carter's bodyguards. It's like, there's a man here about a 70 grand something, right. And then Porter sits, and Carter's like, "Oh, so you're the guy with the 130,"
right?
And Porter's like, "No, it's 70.
Yeah,
it's 70." And I think it's a running gag. But it wasn't supposed to be a running gag. It was supposed to be a thing that frustrates Porter, because he was supposed to be like, "I just want my fair share, and all you guys are talking about is something bigger than what I ask. And just be like, I want to be fair here," which was kind of weird for a criminal.
Well, I think that, again, Brian Helgeland does a great job with that in the script, because it becomes a gag, or more. I guess a gag's not the right word for it. It's like a stress relief. There's a break in the tension every time that happens, because we're all kind of laughing at the amusement of this running gag, this running this misconception. But you're absolutely right, because it's used as a plot device for Porter, because his frustration is constantly getting elevated. That he can't not only not get his money, he can't even get through to the people how much money he's supposed to get.
Yeah. And the issue is, by the time it's like we have that scene where Maria Bello and him are in this another hideaway apartment, basically a different apartment that they went to, and they have that moment where they talk about their past and what she wanted him to do and what he wanted, but it sort of he kept the distance and she kept the distance, but they both wanted that thing to happen. He couldn't go past the fact that she was a prostitute. He couldn't deal with it, basically, which is I would say it's a movie trope, or it's a story plot line that was used constantly over and over again in different movies, which is fine. Um, and then they have that moment where they kiss and he pulls back because he remembers, oh, I have a thing that I want to do. If I do this with you right now, I'll just forget about both of my goals, and I don't really want to. Again, it's all implied. He doesn't say it. He just stops and he says, now's not the time. And he just leaves. And as he leaves, Val comes in and they have that altercation where Val is being a full on wife beater and he smacks her around the place and even shoots the dog.
Yeah, he shoots the dog. He threatens her with physical assault. One key caveat though with Porter is when he's in that phase of like he's unnerved about this mission that he's on. He actually has his revolver in his hand. He's sort of like almost like shaking and quivering with it. Like he's unsteady. There's a quick shot of her like, are you all right? And he's not all right. He's obsessed. He's like, frantic and all of that. So then when he comes back to rescue Pearl, and he sees obviously Val's trying to take advantage of her and all that, he is no nonsense in this shot.
No. And
Fantastic scene.
And to me, the one thing I noticed, because I noticed this right from the start and it really was pronounced, there's more coloring. There's more color to the skin. And when he basically understands that Val is not the guy to talk to, it's Carter.
It's above him. Yeah.
That I need to talk to. He just at one point is like, I'm not gonna get my 70 grand from you whatsoever. And I'm here for revenge as well. So he just shoots her. And then they go off to that apartment that Porter had. The one with the bed, basically. Yep. Now when he goes to Carter, he has a plan when he goes to Carter. He wants to hide away his gun and get to the office and be done with it. But then he's confronted with the trio. So at this point, Stegman understands he's on board and he wants to cut a piece. And he leads the cops to where Porter is. And Porter seemingly does something that it's like, why are you giving your gun to the cops rather than just hiding it in that newspaper?
Oh,
it seems a bit, it seems a bit unreasonable. And of course, we know why he did it. But once they arrived at this point, because we've seen to the rest of the movie, this is the point where he says, oh, this is my out with these cops. Now I know what to do in order to get these cops away from me. Because I just killed Val.
With this gun.
In Maria Bello's outfit apartment. But the cops will get there at some point. So this is a way to frame them because this is the gun that killed Val. And he gives them the gun. He makes sure he can see that they're putting the prints on them. It's like, okay, hold this for me because I'm going to get frisked and I'm going to get frisked. So just hold this gun for me and I'm going to go. And we're left, like, if you're watching this for the very first time, it's like, why are you doing this? Deals with Carter, antagonizes Bronson, goes downstairs, picks up the gun from the cops, and he's like, yeah, you're not getting your money because they gave me the runaround. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. And when he gets back to the apartment, he plants the gun and he plants the badge that he put off of from Duke, right? When they saved him from the Chinese triad. And they're like, oh, now I see when he did that.
Yeah, yeah,
right.
That's just brilliant stuff.
You kind of see the plan forming together, and to me, this entire plan is more noir and less the Death Wish, because he didn't use his bronze; he used his brains in order to kind of concoct this. Oh, I'll just get these monkeys off my back, basically.
I didn't come totally out of the noir feeling, even with the execution of Val and stuff like that, but I kind of did. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you could see, like you said, with some of the reshoots and things like that. I think that's why the tone feels like uneven, but the backbone and the spine of the story and everything like that is pretty much left in place in the overall structure at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. But again,
Good stuff.
when you look at like certain points of the movie, to me the coloring says everything.
Oh yeah,
To me, like, if you look at this shot, this is like
Cagney.
this is this is Gotham to me.
Yeah, Gotham
Like
City.
old Chicago, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I picture. It's like old 40s Chicago. This is what I picture, or like old New York, or something like that. But if you look at the cars are fairly new. I don't know if they wanted to place it in. One place said 1974 because they mentioned Nixon, but I went back and looked at the line. It doesn't say Nixon is in charge.
No. I don't think that was
Cars
supposed to
seem
time
like
set it.
fairly 80s, maybe 90s. I don't know. And again, I'm not sure it's even an exterior. I think it's an actual, like, a sound stage that kind of mimics a New York street, or like a Chicago street. I don't know. But to me, it's still it had that noir feel to it, and like in terms of visualization. And the plan to bring down the big boss starts with both Porter and, again, Maria Bello's character,
Rosie.
Rosie.
Yeah. Because she's like, you'll have to go all the way to the top. You won't be able to stop. It's not like you can leave. You can't be killing the henchmen and the underbosses within this crime organization and come out unscathed. You're going to have to just keep going up. So
Yeah.
he tries sort of like a half measured approach where he kills Carter, and he's like, got to keep moving. He's like, well, do you want to get him on the phone? Do you want to see how that's going to go? This kind of thing. He kind of is giving it out just to get his money, but yeah, we know where it's going.
Yeah,
So.
we know exactly where it's going. And where it's going is the fact that they have sort of a plan that kind of relies on what they told us just a few minutes ago, that whole relationship between him as the protector and the driver of this prostitute. He drives her and protects her from the clients, and they have that relationship where they talk through their rear view mirror and have those conversations before the client and after the client. and they have that sort of a relationship where they kind of divulge the fact that they both really care for each other, and there were lots of reasons that kept them from actually realizing what they were both into, but it kind of held back. And they used that relationship to kind of entice uh, uh, Bronson's kid. First, to me, it was so much fun because they had that little sign that says "Happy Birthday, Johnny," because Porter doesn't know what Bronson's kid looked like, so they had that thing flash and him reacting to it and kind of pointing it to it. It's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And to me, having watched not watched this in a while, I never like in past viewing, I never thought it's a noir film. To me, it's just a run of the mill revenge movie.
Oh, okay.
The one thing that clicked and immediately I start writing my notes was the boxing fight, because it's implied that it's not really a sanctioned fight. It's sort of an underground fight. Yes, there's a big crowd, but it still has that underground feel to it where it's dark, dingy, and it really affirmed the fact that, oh, this is a 50s noir movie because it has all the elements and the score to support it. I have a different take from this. Again, maybe it's me being older. Maybe it's me doing in the last 3 years where I dove deep into movies and started to really appreciate the movies that I already liked. Because I already liked this movie to begin with, even from the first viewing. And now getting into the weeds of it, I find other things that I like about it. And I found that actually really fun and interesting.
Well, and it sold me very early on too with the rewatch of the noir flavor with the voiceover and the journey, and that our hero has already gone through stuff. He's having bullets pulled out of his back and stuff like that. So you have a revenge story, and the boxing stuff. I thought what was interesting was the cleverness of he just sees an address book real quick. He kind of he's listening to clues, things like that. So again, even though we've made comments that kind of insinuate that it comes out of its noir elements in ways, it doesn't ever entirely. It does kind of stay there.
Yeah. And it's Fairfax and not Fairbanks.
Yeah,
Now
Fairfax.
I feel rotten. Once they snatch the boy, it moves on to actually introduce us to Fairfax, because when Porter gets to Carter, after he kills Carter, after he has that conversation on the phone with Bronson, he needs to talk to Bronson again, but he actually doesn't have his phone number. He goes to Carter's like Rolodex thing. He finds only Fairfax's number, right? So he knows the number and the address basically. And when Fairfax comes back because there's a situation, he goes to his house, and of course, Porter is already there, waiting for him to, talk to Bronson, because
Yeah, right.
there's the only guy who could talk to Bronson, and like the only two guys who could talk to Bronson is either Carter or Fairfax.
Yeah, yeah,
And Carter's dead, so he has to be Fairfax.
right.
And I like Fairfax's vanity, where the two, his two henchmen or two employees are having the alligator skin suitcase,
Luggage. Yeah,
and he takes the time to be annoyed at one of them when he like pulls it out of the car. Is not being really careful. He didn't destroy it or anything, but he just gave it a little bang. It's like, why are you doing it? It's a leather skin, and it's very expensive. And then Porter, to make a point, shoots at one of the cases.
yeah. So the setup for that. the alligator luggage, basically.
Yeah.
When Porter has to have a threatening moment and he fires a shot, it actually hits the suitcase. So the entire moment is derailed by the character being obsessed with the fact that you shot my expensive suitcase, not the fact that you mean business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, this, like James Coburn that does Fairfax, is more like the character he did in Maverick.
Okay.
Do you remember Maverick with
Oh,
Mel
yeah.
Gibson?
Mhm.
He's got like the colonel, the smarty colonel with the cigar. He's very much like they're very close in terms of how they speak and how they sort of conduct themselves. It's a very vain kind of a person that looks into the more material things rather than the situation they're in, which is to me it's sort of again made me laugh inside because these guys know each other. Gibson probably wanted specifically James Coburn to be cast. I didn't find any casting notes on this
Yeah, I don't have
anywhere,
anything.
so I don't know. Uh, but the whole point of him, the two employees having to lift the suitcases up while they talk, while he talks to Fairfax, and if they drop it, they either die or Fairfax dies, and Fairfax is you're fired. But they want to they want to lay down the luggage because they got fired. They don't have to work for Fairfax. They don't care if he dies or not, right?
Yep. Yep.
And Fairfax gets Brunson on the phone, and Brunson realizes that Porter really means business.
Yeah, it's all done so well because Porter is so no nonsense. So the audience knows. So the audience is in this case knows way more than the character does about he knows that he shot Carter like with no hesitation, like didn't even like, okay, no, boom, boom, boom. So this character who's been very, I'll just say outlandish or silly with the luggage and all of this kind of stuff, he's not taking this moment nearly as serious as it actually is and how the audience is. We're on edge. Everyone's just waiting till when will Porter do what he needs to do. So yeah, I think the other thing too that it sets really well is the James Coburn's villain is sort of like almost not comedic, but it's sort of like a soft presence in between the other two characters that were way more menacing.
Uh, I love the fact that after this entire exchange, he asks Porter what's it all about, because he literally landed from the plane because of what happened.
Yep.
And then Porter tells him, I need
$70,000.
like 70 grand. And he's like, he does a full on double take. He's like,
Yeah.
70 grand? That's it? 70 grand?
I have more suits that cost more than that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it just puts you in that position where these are the top guys of like a mob, right?
Yep.
Essentially a mob. They're like swimming in money. 70 grand is nothing to them.
Yep.
It's the principle of you came into my house and you're like destroying the china, like an elephant in a china shop. That's what Porter's doing. He's just running through this entire outfit, just destroying the generals, not the not the peons, the generals. And he dared to kidnap the head honcho's son.
Yeah, I think that was a key element with
Yeah.
like the John Wick thing you were going back to earlier too. It's like that's so key, right? Because that is such a different change of the leverage. So taking on the mob and the organization like this is an impossible task. You just be overrun by foot soldiers. But by having the kidnapping and having Johnny sort of like abducted and he's in the, it kind of gives him at least a little bit of leverage as we head into sort of like the final sort of phase of confrontation.
Yeah, and in the final phase, the dominoes need to fall. So all the people who are in the way of Porter need to clear out the way. It goes one by one rather quickly
Yeah.
at the very end. First, because he went to Fairfax, of course the cops are there to, to make sure he gets the money from Fairfax because that's what they think. They're sitting around the car, and Bill Duke's character is like, I'm going to get this ocean liner boat. That's what he's dreaming of. It's like, I don't want the money. I want the boat, but I need the money to buy the boat. And he even mentions that, and that's all he wants. And then, of course, like internal affairs comes in, and it's like, is like, do you know of this? And is like, is this your gun? And do you know this gun? And he shows him the badge. It's like, this is your badge. You reported this missing. Are you sure it was missing?
Mm-hmm.
And you get
Yep.
that whole arrest bit, and they're taking off the
Yep.
board.
They're no longer an obstacle for him. Yep.
And then, of course, Stegman comes in, and he's trying to be the hero. And
He's trying to get a cut too.
Yeah. And he's sitting there with his guy driving the car. And he's like, Porter is going to make mincemeat out of both of you. And he's just sitting there waiting for the opportunity. And he literally snatches the gun away from Stegman.
Yeah, I forgot how funny that would be. It was so good.
It was literally hilarious because I was waiting for it to happen. I knew it was going to happen, and it happened, and it was so clearly these two. Even the guy who had the shotgun at Porter was still unfazed. Like he knew it was going to happen. But then, of course, these guys need to be taken off the board. And how would you do that? Introduce the triad. They come in with Pearl this time, and they just clear these two guys around. Porter gets out because he uses Stegman as a
Human shield, yeah.
shield.
Because the van door just bursts open, and they're just laying out all these bullets or whatever. And because of how Stegman has Porter in the car, Porter is able to kind of stoop down enough to go out the backside of the car. And now he has the upper hand to get the triad because they're distracted.
Yeah, and he shoots and shoots and shoots, and he only gets the two guys at the back without Pearl. And they seemingly drive over him, and then he tries to shoot them like, I don't know when he loaded, but this is like 99, so who cares?
Yeah, there's no loading to the guns. It's infinite bullets in a 1999 movie.
Yeah, it really.
I've seen Matrix. I know.
I was like, if this is a 6-shooter, one of them is a 6-shooter. The other one, at best, 13 bullets, and he's like, pop, 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 pop. I was like, really? I mean, come on now. And then I want to get to that point because it's one of the posters of the movie, basically. It's him and Pearl after a gunfight where there's seemingly infinite bullets, and they end up aiming a gun at each other. Her with her like Walter PPK or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. And she like clicks, and there's nothing. And he has that 6-shooter. I don't know. It's a 38 whatever, Roscoe. And he points at her. He knows there's nothing in there, and he still clicks. And it seems like
so fun.
It seems like they understand each other or something.
I think there's a mad respect for each side of that equation, that coin, or you know what I mean. I think that because Porter is such a raw dog at the end of this, you know what I mean. He just, he knows what she is. She knows what he is. They're not that different in their own little worlds. So yeah.
And to break that tension, you got the two guys who are literally Bronson's men. He's like, whack him over the head, and they take him away. Yep. And all Pearl wants is either talk to Porter or interact with Porter, and she gets annoyed, and she gets clobbered but she's fine with it because at the end of the day, she's not only a sadist, she's also a masochist. Both her and Val are not just sadists; there are true masochists as well. So she basically takes it on the chin and she keeps on ticking. She
Yep.
even has that. She cleans the blood.
Like I said, she
And
kind
that
of wipes her face, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that little smirk is like, oh, oh. She
Yeah,
was
Lucy Lou's boss.
Lucy Liu. Got introduced to Lucy Liu in this movie. I don't remember her doing anything else. And just 1 year later, she was already in Charlie's Angels, like the big movie. I don't know if it's a remake because I don't remember. I remember watching the syndication version of the show Charlie's Angels because it was already over when I was. I don't think I was even born when it was over because I was born in '79. I think it was over by '75 or '76. You tell me.
I thought it ran later than that, but I
It
could
could
be
be.
wrong. It
I
definitely was.
let's just say it wasn't for my age when I was a kid,
Yeah,
but
it
later
ran into
on when I was,
80.
I think it was.
It ran into 80 and 81 was the final season.
So I was a baby. So
Yeah.
when I was a bit older, about 11 or 12, we used to get all these older shows like Three's Company and all that in syndication on cable.
Yeah.
And when we were born,
TV Land.
when I was born and there was no movie to watch, I watched these old syndication shows. Sorry. So I
Yeah,
knew about
yeah.
Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels was the hot girl show when I was a kid. It was like, you were kind of allowed to watch it, but you weren't really supposed to be watching it. It was like how much you're allowed to watch, and yeah,
Yeah, and when Charlie's Angels the movie came out, it was sort of like I don't know what they were trying to do with it. I liked the first one. I really didn't like the second one. Second one was, yeah, it was
yeah. It's just a
too.
throwback to that era of stuff. I don't know that it even felt like a Charlie's Angel project. It was what it was. I don't remember having any.
She really became a star after Charlie's Angels,
Yeah.
and I think she did Ally McBeal, but I don't remember in what year. She wasn't a movie star. She was on
Correct.
TV with Ally McBeal, but she wasn't a movie star. And I really didn't watch Ally McBeal at the time. I don't
Oh.
know when Ally McBeal started. We can check.
Yeah. This was a pretty fast run up until Kill Bill. Because once you get to Kill Bill, then all bets are off. Like it's a completely different career for her at that point.
Yeah, 97. I'm not sure she was introduced in 97, maybe later on, but she was on Ally McBeal. I saw her first in this movie when my wife was watching Ally McBeal. Then I got like, oh, it's Lucy Liu. She's from Charlie's Angels. She was already that sort of end of the 90s kind of got into the mix. But yeah, this
Oh,
I
she's a regular on a show called Pearl. I don't think I know what that is.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But yeah, she was a regular on a show. There's 2 seasons of some show called Pearl. I don't remember that.
What
Then it
in
says she
the
was in
90s?
Shanghai Noon. I remember her being in Shanghai Noon. She was a princess
No,
in
but that's
Charlie's Angels.
that's after the 2000s. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
at the end of the 90s, she was on Ally McBeal. She was on TV, and her like introduction or breakout role was this, or a little bit, and then her like full on. This is Lucy Liu, a movie star, was Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, she had a little bit of a role in a film in the same year as Charlie's Angels called Shanghai Noon. It's one of those Jackie Chan movies where she was the princess.
Yep.
The same year. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, piecing together stuff, IMDb and stuff like that up there, making sure I don't get my facts too wrong. So
Right. Now, you know what? Before we do sort of the last scene and the deception and everything, we'll do our second game of the night. Let me
do it.
set this up quickly there and
I'm sure
there.
chat will let us know how I did on the first round. I At least I did. I don't think I failed. I didn't fail. I did.
You
I did.
didn't
You
fail
know.
at
Yeah.
all. I think it was 8 or 9 out of 10. Don't worry
Yeah.
about this.
No, I don't.
This
I'm
one,
just. I have no ego to bruise. I'm shocked that I remember some of those, but I lived through it. So it's like that's the reason they're in there. I lived through it.
our second game is much simpler. It is called Screen Fighter.
Scream.
Round one, fight.
Screen Fighter is very simple. We've got 2 movies in a vacuum. Which one will we choose? Well, technically we put them in a ring and we have them fight it out. Not really, but we have 2 movies in a vacuum. Which one is the best one? If there's no discernible difference between the 2, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is at the end of the day, Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other. 2 movies in a vacuum. Which one will you pop in? And there we go.
Oh,
First,
that's no brainer. Okay.
Mars Attacks or 7? Go ahead.
Oh, it's an easy thing. I love Seven. I think Seven is one of the best psychological thrillers of its little genre. I can rewatch Seven dozens and dozens of times. The goofiness and silliness of Mars Attacks and all of that, it's fine. I don't know that I could get Mrs. Pops to watch it. I mean, maybe on that one, but now Seven is top tier for me. I love Seven. I think it's great.
We covered 7 on the show.
Yeah.
I had so much fun like diving deep
Oh
into
yeah.
it. It's not only a great David Fincher movie, like great, like you could tell it's Fincher. It's a great movie overall. Morgan Freeman is just so good in it. And Brad Pitt does
Phenomenal.
early Brad Pitt things that I love that he used to do, where he just suddenly goes completely over the top crazy and aggressive, and then he kind of calms down. And
Yeah.
it really fits with the character he was playing. And Kevin Spacey is just
Yeah.
say what you want about the man Kevin Spacey. The roles that he did are just, some of them were like exquisitely good.
Yeah, that's
I love
that's too easy for me.
I love Mars Attacks. I have not seen.
I don't think I've seen Love Liza.
No, I haven't seen. I've seen
Um,
I Road to China, but
I would pick High Road to China because I've seen it. It's okay. I'm not going to write home about it.
long time ago. Back when they were like, "Oh, Magnum PI is very popular. Let's put Tom Selleck in everything." And
Oh yeah, this is another
most of his
softball.
movies kind of
Yeah.
bombed. Right. There's no question here, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I'm not watching Leprechaun 2.
I'm not watching. I watched Leprechaun 1 this October. I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah, I'm not watching that stuff again. Yeah, same thing here. I think Where the Wild Things Are, it has to be a weird thing for people who really loved that movie. I remember being so excited to go see it. I thought it was all right. Let's just give this a run, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even know. I've never watched it again.
Yeah, I
I
watched
I
it
don't.
once. It's a weird one.
It's got that artsy. It's
Yeah.
got that artsy thing where they think they're smarter than they are feeling to it. Anchorman, of course, is just a guilty pleasure of fun.
Just as a knock,
It's just guilty pleasure fun.
as a knock to Anchorman. I don't particularly like Will Ferrell or his brand of humor, but the supporting cast does it for me in this movie. It really does.
I always defend Will Ferrell because he's a fearless performer. Like he's a dude that does not have a problem running around in his underwear and being the butt of every joke in a movie, and just it seems like it's a lost thing now where they don't want to do that. So,
All right, City of Angels
yeah,
or Last Action Hero, and I must say, this is like this poster is nothing that I've ever seen of Last Action Hero.
yeah, that's got to be obviously. There's
Terminator or like a Total Recall.
100% what they went for there. With obviously there's an Asian poster of some kind. That's what they're going for. They purposely made it look like that to get the people in. Yeah, look, I've seen City of Angels as well. Never watched it again. It's whatever it was serviceable in my brain at the moment. I don't have any glaring negativity, but I would just, for guilty pleasure purposes, sit through Last Action Hero all over again for sure.
I don't think Last Action Hero is anywhere near as close to the bad things people say about it.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch that again. I haven't watched that in forever. It's kind of one I got to give a rewatch too.
It's a fantastic movie that people thought they were going to see yet another Arnold action movie, and it's a really good take on like a good satire without it being outright funny about the 80s action hero. It really is diving deep into what makes an action hero, the way we think of it as a Hollywood action hero.
Yeah.
Fox and the Hound or Bedazzled.
Again, kind of remembered Bedazzled. Don't know that I'd ever sit through that again. Mrs. Pops loves Fox and the Hound. So it's actually one of the heavier, sappy Disney movies from the older era.
Yeah.
So she would be all about that. And I have no grievances against Fox and the Hound. It's fine. But yeah, I would not sit through that. I'm not sitting through Bedazzled again.
I don't remember it doing that well. It was the 80s era that Disney was not doing so well. And
Oh no, they were bomb after bomb financially. Yeah,
right? I don't think it did well. I don't like Disney at all. I've seen both of them. Bedazzled is not a good movie.
Yeah.
It's simply not.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is her.
In the poster right there, where the hoo-has are all exposed, and that's probably it's all downhill from there.
It's not in the way she looks. It's she as the devil was very her acting in this was very compelling. She did a better acting job in Bedazzled than she did in Austin Powers.
All right.
She really did. I'll pick the Fox and the Hound just because Mrs. Pops, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is the End or Home Alone 2. And this will be our final kind of coupling.
I don't think I know what This Is the End is. Hold on.
This is the End is
comedy horror. Seth Rogen. Oh, I'm not watching that.
Rogen.
Yeah, so I'm out. Yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of Home Alone 2. It's fine during Christmas. I'm not watching Seth Rogen.
Okay,
Yeah,
I have watched it once,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen it, so we'll get a fresh pair.
Ooh, that's a good movie. See, the problem with a movie like that fits into that category I have of like a one and done kind of movie. Like movies that are really good, they're
Really,
fine.
as good as it gets.
I don't know that I'd sit through it again because I don't know. Mrs. Pops doesn't like it. She doesn't care for. I don't know what it was about that movie she didn't like. So that would be a channel watch movie for sure. I would watch that movie, do a review. That's definitely part of my throwback, film series or something like that for sure. I would not be opposed to sitting through As Good as It Gets. But Home Alone 2 is probably like it's an annual thing during the Christmas holidays. I kind of feel like I'm kind of torn, but yeah, As Good as It Get would be my choice for sure. Definitely a far superior movie. It's a far superior movie, but I can't even remember watching it again in like probably 20 years. Saw it when it came out. Saw it one other time for sure. So
I watched As Good as It Gets way, way, way more times than I watched Home Alone 2. I can tell you the amount of times that I watched Home Alone 2 on one hand, and it would be with like 2 digits. I watched this movie twice.
Yeah, it only makes it because of the Christmas element. It's not a good movie. It's
not because of the Christmas element. I've seen it once in the theater and once on VHS rental. That would be it for me.
Yeah, I totally get it.
I didn't connect to this movie. I love Macaulay Culkin. I love the fact that they brought in the Wet Bandits again. It was you could not capture the same magic again.
Agreed.
To me, it was the same movie, different setting.
100%.
All right? Same movie, different setting. They tried to capture the magic again. It's not a bad movie. It really isn't. But it's trying to massage the lightning into the bottle, and it really didn't work for me.
Yeah.
As good as it gets is in my top 20 of all time.
Wow. Cool.
I
Very cool.
absolutely adore this movie. It's not just Jack. It's both Helen Hunt that does a great job in it to be the neurotic mom. It is Greg Kinnear, which I absolutely detest, and I can't stand him in anything else that he did. Maybe in the one where with Matt Damon, where they're like conjoined twins, and even there, I don't like him. I like Matt Damon. In this movie, it's just he fits perfect. And the unsung hero of this movie is Cuba Gooding Jr. He has like 3 or 4 scenes, and they're all great. They're all great. He plays the Jerry Maguire character, just that he's not a football player
Got it.
and gay.
I don't remember.
Same character.
I don't remember anything negative. It's just one of those things where I know she won't watch it, so it's one of those things. Well, where does it fit in my watch cycle? And it would fit into that category. So it's a '97 film, so probably in a couple of years we'll do it for an anniversary year or something like that.
I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, cool.
I get why people don't like it because of Jack. But in this movie, he's the most Jack Nicholson up to a certain point, and then he is the character he's playing. But in most of the movie, he is Jack.
Yeah, I'm gonna say even the sunglasses thing. It's like that's who he is, so kind of thing. So, but yeah, but again, I wouldn't rule it out. It would just be something that's not on the radar screen. So, cool, very cool.
I absolutely love that movie. Anyway, let's finish up.
Yeah, let's go. Just drive this into the driveway, man. Now we get into like gritty stuff.
Now, if we're talking about the farthest away from a noir and the closest to a John Wick Death Wish movie,
Yeah,
it's definitely this scene.
this scene, all of this stuff is just almost like absurd. Like I actually forgot about the hammer. I don't know. There's
Really?
part of me that was like, oh, he doesn't get hit. I mean, there's just something that kind of felt like, oh, okay, yeah, it does happen, doesn't it? Okay, it just didn't click. I remember the hammer.
There are a few scenes from this that I like were imprinted in my mind. It's the one where he blows the car with the cigarette. It's the one where he faces off with Lucy Liu's character.
Yep.
And it's this scene. It's the fact that he is sitting there and he already knows the setup, but he knows that in order for Bronson to believe him, he has to suffer. So much so that before the first hit, it's like, he's gonna hit your toes, and then he's gonna move on to your knees. And defiantly, he looks at him and he says, "This little piggy goes to the market." And Bronson is like, he's not even do it. He's like, and the guy's smashed in the first one. And he asks him another question. He doesn't answer. Bronson goes like this. And the guy who with the hammer continues. This little piggy went home. Bam! The second one. And he endured 2.
Yep.
And he was going to do the 3. And then he relented.
And then there's the roast beef line. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was hardcore. It was fantastic. It was hardcore. Yeah, it's good.
And the fact that Bronson is like, if you tell me where he is, I'll like kill you now. He says it before, but if you tell me where he is now, I'm gonna just shoot you and be done with it. But if not, I'm gonna make this last for 3 weeks Not only that, I'm gonna give you blood transfusion in order to keep you alive. For you, like to keep you alive with everything I need, just to make sure you like hurt a lot. It's like that is one of the most scary thoughts that I had in my mind ever. It's like this is not just torture. This is outright just a full-on beatdown. And you're saying you'll make this last for 3 weeks? That's insane.
Yeah, it just conceptually was just phenomenal, just phenomenal. So
And Chris Christopherson, man, when he has that face, this is just scary. He's not overtly like trying to scare you, but he has that face where he just he has that thing to him, and he's like, everything in his face kind of convulges into this point, and you're like, this is. I don't know why Porter isn't like deathly afraid, but of course Porter is one, or maybe even 2 steps ahead of these people, because he knew he would have had to take these hits. Otherwise, they would never, ever go to that safe house. Now, Fairfax didn't know that Carter sent those assassins there. Bronson definitely didn't know. So they just went for it. And you have that sort of a thing where either the director or the cameraman or the editor was trying to fool you that the boy who was chained to the radiator is actually sitting in that apartment, because it goes back and forth.
yeah, it's super cut. It's super cut to them in an apartment, and then the bad guy's going down the hallway to an apartment, and it's cut. The twist, of course, is that they're going to the setup of where the bomb is, and not to where Johnny and Rosie are. So
Yeah.
fantastic. It's really
Like
done well.
the one cut is him
On
in
the
Rosie's apartment, like
reader.
Rosie's apartment or the hideaway apartment that Rosie set up with Porter. And on the other hand, it's Fairfax and Brunson go into the hideaway apartment, and they have Porter at the trunk to make sure like he lives until we find the boy, and then they're gonna dispatch him. But of course, every one of those cars, and that's established that every one of those cars have that sort of car phone. Again, this is 1999. Everybody at this point has cell phones. Like, either Ericsson was at the time, Nokia, or Motorola. Somebody has one of those phones. But yet, these are rotary phones, not touch, not tone. And there are like set up in a car, and he gets freed, and he calls, and of course Brunson doesn't know, so he picks up the phone, and they have sort of that quick not really discussion, but it's like, I got you. It's like boom, and it explodes.
I don't remember anyone having a rotary phone like that for a car phone. It's just it was really an interesting take on that whole thing, by the way.
Yeah,
Maybe that was a thing, but I don't remember that. So
to me, this was a part of maybe staying in the 50s zone.
yeah, trying to make it feel more retro than it actually was. Sure.
Yeah, because again, we talked about this. The car's fairly new, so
Yeah.
it's definitely not 50s or 40s. So what is it? So that little piece is sort of that remnant of we're trying to do something old, but it is set in the future. Sort of like one thing does not belong to the other, but it's still there and it still works. And again, all the phones are rotary phones throughout the movie. So,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and of course, uh, Rosie comes to pick up Carter, and Brunson, and we saw it in the scene with the hammer. He comes in with this bag, this pouch of money, and he's like, he opens the zipper. Look, this is the 130, and he closes it. This is the last time you see this amount of money.
Yeah.
And Porter's like 70,
Yeah.
70, and they kept it going right up until like this gruesome scene. And of course, Rosie picks up the money, and it's 130. It's not the 70. It's the 130. And they, like I mentioned before, he has that line of, okay, I don't have to do anything. Like, you stop hooking, I'll stop like heisting,
Yeah.
or maybe I'll do a job or two. It's like
Yeah.
sort of like he still keeps that door open to
Yeah.
to
But
be-
how about we just have breakfast? I
Yes.
love it. Just beautiful.
yeah. It's sort of like let's drive into the sunset.
Yeah.
And
we'll deal with that tomorrow.
yeah, when the sun comes up, we'll just have breakfast. Sort of that was on my mind. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
and where they're going? To Canada.
Canada. That's good, man. I'm glad we chose this. This is a fun film. It was, like you said earlier too, with Mel Gibson's resume. Mephisto. If we did any type of poll or surveying of best favorite films or whatever, people are going to list, and probably rightfully so, many of these things that are better. Everything from Mad Max to Passion to Braveheart, whatever. But a film like this just kind of gets like lost in the shuffle, if you will. So I'm glad we're able to highlight it and spend some time on it.
Yeah, I said it. I said it before. This is definitely one of my favorites of Mel Gibson. To me, it's if you distill Mel Gibson into a type of role where he's trying to be sort of the badass and not in an epic, I would choose this. I would choose this over. That's a personal thing, right? I would choose this over Braveheart. So like, okay, it's time to watch a Mel Gibson movie. What would you watch? I would watch Payback. I would watch Bird on a Wire. Both not great movies at all. Both of them have Bill Duke, but never mind. Like I would watch those instead of watching Braveheart or The Patriot or maybe not Lethal Weapon, but Lethal Weapon is in that mix of I want to watch a Mel Gibson movie where he's just a badass. All four Lethal Weapons would be in that mix. Payback would be in that mix. Burn on a Wire would be in that mix.
I'd put the Mad Max movies in that
Any
list.
of the Mad Max movies.
Huh? What's that?
Not necessarily one of the Mad Max movies. Although the Mad Max movies are better films. Maybe not the Thunderdome one, but you know what I'm getting to.
Yeah, I understand.
The
I'm with you.
Road Warrior is just stellar.
Yeah, it's a tremendous film.
It's really good. It's really good. I've recently went back to it. There are moments in it where you're like, oh, it's still an Australian movie, but it's just really good. It's really good. It's to me, Road Warrior is better than Mad Max. In certain aspects, but on certain movies, I know I'm in the minority. But I'll gladly say that I like Road Warrior, which is Mad Max 2, better than Mad Max.
Okay. I'm gonna listen. This isn't to me. The Mad Max Road Warrior thing is almost like it starts to get into the conversation. I mean, Road Warrior to me is probably superior, but it's like the Alien versus Aliens, Terminator 2. It's the fun nerdiness of loving two things, and we can actually love them both. And now we're into degrees, we're into moods and things like that. But this is a film that it's kind of like a lost gem. It's just not something that's talked about. So. Like I said, I'm real happy that we earmarked this one for sure.
Yeah, Payback to me is sort of that distilled Mel Gibson in a modern kind of setting, I would say. Not epic, not dystopian future, not if you single those out, it's Lethal Weapons, Payback, and Bird on a Wire that was like they're letting Mel Gibson be the most Mel Gibson, I think. You kind of get to see a little bit of it in Expendables. But Expendables is not a great movie. It's like Expendables 3, I think.
Yeah,
But
that's just action fodder. I don't.
yeah, I know.
I don't hold them up to this
No,
kind of stuff. So
it's so weird, but Mel Gibson is the best part of it.
yeah,
Shitty movie. Sorry. I've seen it with the wife a week ago. It's
right.
terrible. It's
Yeah,
absolutely awful. All right, Pops. Thank you for joining me.
yeah, good
what
stuff.
you-
Thanks.
Tell me what you got going on these days. We're like recording this for the future, but
Sure.
what you got?
YouTube, it's /@pops. So I'm a movie, TV, comic book nerd. So in 2024, I've been doing Star Trek original series rewatch reactions. I'm not a Trekkie, so it's kind of like watching it through a noob's eyes. Yes, I've watched them. Yes, I'm a fan and those kinds of things, but I have not. I haven't died. So I'm watching them actually in production order. So that's kind of a fun little project for 2024. But yeah, comic book content, TV stuff. And I have a weekly, well, not a weekly, because I've kind of given my permission this year to not put pressure to do it every single week. But I have a regular Sunday interview type show called What's Your Story? Conversations and things like that. So that's kind of out there as well. So yeah, different types of ways of expressing all of who I am rather than having multiple channels and all that kind of stuff. This is just every facet of me being that quintessential 80s, 90s uber nerd. So, and yeah, man, I like yourself, just love movies, love talking nerdy stuff. So yeah, if that's your thing, maybe give something to watch and see if it's a flyer for you. Appreciate it.
And of course, all the description to where we can find you will be in, like, all the links will be in the description
Yes,
down
awesome.
below for where everyone can find you, Twitter, all that stuff. You got Rumble, right?
And I don't really,
I don't really use it. And
it's synced, but I don't think I don't know. I don't, it's not,
it,
it's I'm trying to get like one ball to grow to the next, like before, cause it's just throwing against too many things. It's like I have pieces of everything, and yet I got to get focused and keep growing the 2 or 3 pieces at a time. So
okay.
yeah, I wouldn't consider myself active on there, but no, YouTube, Twitter. I do have a little bit of a Facebook presence because it's just stuff that carried over from decades of being there. So I just kind of just stuff that just populates there. So if that's your thing, it's easier to connect that way. Then that's easy to find me. But yeah. So
All right. And you guys know where to find me because it's in the links in the description always.
yes, hit that bell.
Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bid you farewell and good night. And remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. We'll see you next week.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.